Some news and information around Dark Knight's Death Metal, the event that's been building for quite some time and will finally start to see the light of day June 24th. I know there are some pages floating around out there, but we have some news and updates a little bit more around the series. And while we're at it, we're going to talk a little bit about a Peter David product coming out from Marvel that's kind of exciting to long-term fans. So let's get into it. Hey everybody, this is Perch. As we know, Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo have been building and working toward Death Metal, which is a sequel, sort of. We went from Metal to all of the Year of the Villain work, Perpetua, and kind of the storyline that's been going on through Justice League, and it's kind of coming to a conclusion with Death Metal. This feels a little bit different from a sequel. Normally with sequels, you have a complete story and then a pause, and then you have a new threat, but some of the same characters, and they do that. And this one, the threat's kind of been building the whole time. There were definitely cohesive elements to Metal that will exist and set up, it did set up Age of the Villain, but now we're setting up Death Metal. So you have a consistent story. Now, DC marketing doesn't always like to describe it that way because that makes it sound like, the product's inaccessible unless you've read all these things. But I think the reality is it will be very hard to pick up Death Metal and really enjoy it to its fullest and understand everything that's going on if you didn't read Metal or, parts of Scott Snyder's Justice League run. I'm sure it will be possible, and DC and the creators are definitely saying you don't have to read all these things, and that's I'm sure will be true on some level. But on a level, we just have to be honest with ourselves. These bigger events that have tight continuity, which we all ask for and want, have the side effect of you do have to actually read all the books. You can't really get one without the other. So, the writers juggle as best they can. It's always kind of a crapshoot about how well they do it. Snyder's done it fairly well in the past, I think, around putting out events where you don't have to read everything and still get the event. Case in point, Metal had a number of different tie-ins, Tales from the Dark Multiverse. And they were great stories in a lot of cases, but they did not, if you didn't read them, it didn't take away from Metal, but it did add to that universe, and it was interesting. There was some really cool stuff on it. Of course, they sold very well to kind of flesh out the characters. The characters wind up feeling a bit, I want to say hollow, but a little bit less, let me describe it a different way. The characters get fleshed out through some of these tie-ins that if you don't read them, they're a little bit more shallow, which is to be expected, right? There's more material, so of course there's going to be more information. But a couple bits around Death Metal and what's coming. So first of all, like I mentioned, June 24th, about a month late from when it was originally planned, and it's been bumped up to 7 issues from 6 issues. And this seems to happen to Snyder a decent amount. The Batman Who Laughs series did the same thing. There's also going to be a number of tie-ins. I've heard everything from a large number to a reasonable number to some. We don't fully know all the tie-ins and the companion books that are coming out, but we know there's going to be several of them, and we know a little bit more about what they will look like. So the other piece of news on this is that Death Metal is not going to go a full run through, 7 months, 7 issues. There's going to be a skip month, and that is September. So this was something similar. I believe this happened with Metal as well. This is kind of common when you have an event with kind of a tipping point in the middle. This does seem to be the kind of story in many cases that Scott Snyder likes to write. He writes up to a point, and then there's a time jump or a gap, and then there's more comic. And during that gap, it's an opportunity to fill some other things. So as September is going to be a skip month, we get into some of these tie-in issues, and we get 2 companion specials, the Death Metal Guidebook and the Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights, #1. There's been a lot of confusion, I think, around what guidebook means exactly. It does sound like it is an opportunity to kind of flesh out the world and explain a little bit of what goes on. But the Legends book will feature a number of different creators. And the list of creators is actually pretty impressive. It's got, of course, Scott Snyder, James Tynion IV, Joshua Williamson, Becky Cloonan, Chip Zdarsky, Doug Mahnke, Vita Ayala, Priest, Christopher Priest, Dan Pasayan, Edward Riso, and Kari Randolph. I didn't butcher those names too badly. And others. We're getting Francesco Francavilla, Daniel Warren Johnson, Pete Tomasi, You've got just a lot of different creators going on here for both the guidebook and Legends. You also have writers like Warren Ellis, Garth Ennis, Frank Chieri, Tony Daniel, Jim Chung. So really a big amount of creators coming in. And the anthology book, the Legends book, should feature these, framing story, kind of classic, similar to what you've been seeing a little bit with the 1000 issues, where you got a big framing story and then you got a bunch of little sub stories that, just cover different parts of the world and the characters and, dinosaur Batman and all this crazy stuff. So definitely, and the promise that there's more. So we've heard that Garth Ennis will have an evil Batman baby story. Warren Ellis is doing the evil T-Rex Batman. So a lot of kind of crazy stories in there as it revolves around the world, where the Batman Who Laughs has stepped up to become the mega villain, as we saw in the Evil Unleashed, that story that found a confrontation between the Batman Who Laughs and Lex Luthor, and the Batman Who Laughs prevailing. And that brings us to the world we get, which is a screwed up, crazy, death metal kind of look. So, a lot of things going on here. There will be other stories, but 7 issues, a skip in the middle, filled with some anthology books, the guidebook that will have just kind of some, from what we can tell, kind of some a guide to the multiverse, kind of like the old Marvel superhero guides, but maybe a little bit, probably with the creators involved, a little bit more illustrated, a little bit more world building. In all this, it's a lot of effort going to world building, and if it succeeds, and this comic does very well, you've got to think that even after it's all over, Scott Snyder said this is the crescendo, this is the building up to the big finale and everything else. But if it sells well, you have to believe DC is going to be doing some Elseworld spinoffs and other stuff. I have a hard time believing you're going to abandon this world and just kind of go on about their day. I think there will be more. Undoubtedly, I think there will be more, but we'll see. That's my personal prediction. Really quickly skipping over to the other bit of news I teased at the beginning. Peter David and Dale Keown are reuniting, and they are creating a Maestro book. It's a limited series, but we don't know how many issues are in the limited series. It's a limited series of unspecified length, which I think, may describe every comic Marvel publishes these days. But this is going to take a look at how, bridging the gap between Bruce Banner Hulk to the Maestro being the hyper-evolved, smarter, has killed off all the heroes, wanders around with Captain America's shield and the Silver Surfer's board, and was set up as a big threat in Peter David's run. Peter David, of course, I think is a beloved creator of the Hulk. It's one of the things that he's most well known for, and he had a pretty amazing run with some awesome creators, Dale Keown being one of the best. What's a little bit ominous in this is that they're reuniting with artist Jermaine Peralta. It's unclear. Is Dale Keown doing the covers? Is he doing parts of the story and not other parts of the story? I'd like to sum that up. This idea that they're reunited, there's another artist in the mix means what exactly? What's the Dale Keown part? So for a lot of us, the Hulk run with Peter David and Dale Keown was amazing. That was a really solid run of Hulk comics, and it put both people on the map. So I think a lot of fans are really hoping to see that team up in a big way, but we will see. I think hopefully this brings some really nice creators to the table. The Hulk as a story, that run was kind of interrupted and bumbled around a bit. We certainly do have the Al Ewing current Immortal Hulk run, which is very, very different style and tone. But the opportunity to go back and actually do something with Maestro, it's a villain character that really has a lot of complexity and a lot more Marvel can do with it. And there's been fits of starts. I mean, Al Ewing himself tried to do something with him during the Contest of Champions book that was ultimately very, very short-lived, didn't really have any kind of lasting impact. So one hopes this is a good prestige format. It's in Marvel's new role of putting some of the classic creators together again to kind of do what they do best. And from what I'm hearing, there will be more announcements like this of kind of reuniting some classic creators on characters that they are known for and giving them some books to do. So we can all look forward to that. But those are 2 bits of news for today. More information on Death Metal, the Peter David, Dale Keown Maestro book. Do you have any questions? Are you anticipating either one of these? Which one? What do you like? Let me know in the comments below. Would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on the matter. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications if you don't mind. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch. But most importantly, thanks for listening.